Larry, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and get into kind of kind of discuss this other thing. You and I have talked about even when we were in the legislature about mental health and how it's impacting different folks. I know we touched on that there was a ballot measure that just barely passed that would provide mental health services, and it looked at providing mental health services for homeless. But there's a study out that just came out recently that looks at Gen Z, and it looks at that particular generation and the issues that they are dealing with with mental health, and the overdriving reason they've indicated that they themselves are dealing with mental health is because of social media. Something you and I spend quite a bit of time on, obviously, because it's part of our job. But for and obviously, I enjoy some of the things you send over to me, as I send over to you. But is there a point to this? Is there what's your thoughts on this social media mental health? And you got Zuckerberg yesterday sent out a letter over to one of the committees saying that you got Joe Biden that was forcing him and Meta to basically push away or basically suppress certain types of posts, ban certain types of posts that dealt with COVID. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this thing?
There's not one person who has not said they weren't more mentally fresh after they disconnected from social media when they went on vacation. So yeah, it's a problem. We all feed into it, unfortunately, and we're all becoming more dependent on this animal called social media than we probably should. And we got to figure a way to, we used to call it work-life balance. It's got to be called something else because it is impacting us, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or some Chinese bot that is trying to influence us somewhere. It's coming at us from all sides, and it is impacting our mental health because we're taking. Go ahead.
Do you find it harder to disconnect now than you did before?
Yes. I find myself, things are so instantaneous that as an old man, I find myself looking at social media to see what's the latest update. And yet I've come to realize when I've taken a 3-day weekend and gone somewhere and I haven't looked at social media, it's like a soap opera. I really haven't missed anything. And it's at the same place I left it, whether it's 3 days or in the case of a soap opera, might be years since you've seen the last one, So yes, I think our mental health is being impacted by it because of what we believe and what we don't believe when we're seeing it. And friends are becoming enemies because of it. And it's really not healthy. And that's kind of when we talked last time, I think why the Olympics were so healthy. It kind of let us get away and kind of come together and root for something common than looking for areas on social media where we disagree.
Yeah, you're right. You're right in that being able to disconnect. I don't think there's a solution anytime soon. I think. And I guess it also depends on the work that one does. But in the area of business that you and I are involved in, we're constantly, from the minute I wake up, I check the news. I check, I make sure that first of all, make sure this office is still standing. I then look at what is happening around the world, and then I kind of move it closer into home because that's kind of how I somewhat have to plan out my day. You've got am I going to have to do media interviews? Am I going to have to type up some response for a client because there was an article on oil or almonds or whatever, a variety of different things, and so
it's likely that report you're responding to surfaced somewhere on social media that they have to respond to, and a lot of times I find both you and I having to respond to something that is just flat not true, that just gets put out there and somehow got a life of its own that we have to now try to put down as a bad rumor. And that's why young people are suffering with mental health issues as a result of it, because they're believing the unbelievable and untruths.
Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't really think, when I read that story, I didn't really think about the area where you've got these youth that are looking at these social media. They want to be influencers, and they're at times looking at this glorified life of what it may be to be an influencer that is far from reality, or that, the truth is maybe they don't have the talent to do that, but they're looking at these influencers that it seems as though they're on a private jet. They seem as though they're driving this great car, that, that they've got money. They're going to these fancy restaurants and stuff. And there's this fantasy world that gets created with it, that you've got other folks trying to emulate that, or believing that, hey, I can get that myself. And when they don't, or they're struggling to build their audience, that it impacts them mentally, obviously. And, that kind of has a cascading effect on them.
Right. What we're seeing is not necessarily what they're living. And, we see that far too often, because that person who is a quote unquote social media celebrity has their own mental health crisis, and then the truth is kind of unveiled. So we need to take it all with a grain of salt. But at the same time, our business now is kind of relies on the very animal we're talking about to sustain ourselves. We look at new way. We're looking at how we can best communicate through social media to to people, rather than the more traditional ways that we used to do it. Through the mail, a television piece, a newspaper article that fully explained the article. People want us, in the 1980s and 90s, we used to call it USA Today in it. The USA Today never jumped a story to an inside page. Everything was 6 inches or shorter. Now it's got to be 280 or 30 seconds or less on a TikTok in order to make a point. And oftentimes that's not possible unless you're trying to influence them in a specific way that may or may not be the truth.
Well, that's what happened during the Democratic convention, right? When there was rumors online that President George W. Bush was going to be at the Democratic National Convention. Then there was rumors that it was going to be Taylor Swift, and then the final rumor was that it was going to be Beyonce was going to be performing at the Democratic National Convention, and none of it was true.
Right, but I'll bet it drove up ratings for that final night. I'm not going to lie. I was waiting for someone to come out. And by the way, when they were presenting it all made absolute sense. Not so much the George Bush stuff, but, Vice President Harris's theme song is Freedom, which is Beyonce's song. So early in the week, it was thought that she might be that surprise guest. And then Taylor Swift's final concert was on a Tuesday, which would have given her time to make it to Chicago by Thursday and be on stage. And then there was they had some post where Kelsey had asked for a pass to get in to the convention for Thursday, and that was feeding into it. So it all started making, sense, and it was going to happen. None of it happened because none of it was planned to happen. And we bought into the hype.
We did. TMZ had to correct themselves over there, because they're the ones who also bought into the hype, as did other news reporters. Because once it started getting fire online, and that's a part of it, is we become so, and as we go, as kind of to bring it back around, we get so caught up in the social media circle that we end up believing without verifying, without and it wasn't until later that the publicist for each one of the groups said, no, we're not planning to be there. We're not, or whether they were invited or not, but no, they weren't planning to be there. And
Hector, I know that on Monday the Beyonce rumor started because it was like on the Today Show and stuff. Beyonce's people didn't put out a release until 6 o'clock on Thursday saying they had no plans on being there. So, they helped feed that machine as well by saying nothing until the last minute, which, I'm sure was designed to help drive people there to watch her speech on Thursday.
Agreed. And therein lies the, you and I being stuck on online trying to figure out, okay, who's the special guest, what's going to happen. I mean, we see it now with a lot of the work that we do, where, if we've got the President Trump, if we've got Gavin Newsom, if we've got Kamala Harris going out and speaking somewhere, we start looking at the notes from the reporters online, whether I'm usually on Twitter for me, to find out, okay, what's the readout? What were they saying? Is there something that we're going to have to respond to or have to comment on later on? And so, we end up getting that readout, and we get stuck to our phones.
Well, I mean, and imagine us, we're a 50 and 60 something year old guys doing it. Imagine being 14, 15, 16 at their influencers, more than what we're even doing. And I'm not surprised why we're seeing mental health becoming such a crisis in this area.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and I'm kind of glad schools are tapping down on the use of phones in schools.
Oh, that's a good one. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'd ask you. You have 2 kids in school. Do you think that's a good idea that they're tapping down? I do know the reason why it got reversed in the beginning was because of the shooting massacres, and kids didn't have phones to contact their parents when the crisis was going down. So, of course, everyone had to have a phone on them to be able to reach their parent. But now it's kind of come full circle again, where now we're restricting use in the classroom. And I don't think that's a bad thing, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think one of the classes for Bella, they're having her put their cell phones in a I don't know, like a bag or so forth, and they put it somewhere in the classroom. I think for the other ones, the teachers, like, you can, just don't take them out, keep them in your bag. I like Bella having one. Ray doesn't have one. I've told Ray that her sister got one when she was like 12 or 13, and she's got to wait till that age to get one. But part of it is, as you know, with the sports, with the Bella's got band practice after school and a variety of things. Like, okay, hey Dad, we're running about 15, 20 minutes late. Can you come pick me up a little bit later? I said, okay. Or, hey Dad, the band teacher, and so forth. We finished a little bit early with because she's in leadership now, and so that sometimes they finish up a little early, and so then I can get out there, and so all that kind of helps out, especially like when they go perform, because sometimes they're performing not just at the local high school, but sometimes they're away, and while when she was playing softball, I could stay there all day because they were playing different tournaments. Here, they may perform twice in a span of about 12 to 13 hours, and so there's a lot of dead time in between. So right. I'll watch them perform. I'll go do something else, or there have been times when I go to the restaurant, go eat, and start working out of there. Find myself at Denny's and start working out of there, and she'll end up texting me. Says, "Okay, we're starting to pack up now, and so Dad, if you come over the next 30 minutes, be good." So, in that sense, yeah, it has been helpful quite a bit. We've had this conversation about, in dinner table, we put our cell phones down and we put them away. If I've got to be on the phone or something and I have it out, I will tell Amy, I'll tell the girls, like, hey, I'm waiting for this interview thing to come in, or I'm waiting for this thing I've got to edit. So I will try to be best I can away from it, but something pops up, I've got to answer to it. This week is a little bit crazier just because we got the end of session, obviously, and things are moving back and forth. I got a couple notes over the weekend that I needed to work on, and so it just I don't know. I have a tough time disconnecting. I mean, that's the honest truth. Is I feel like as though I feel like sometimes, what's that movie, The Matrix? We're just connected to the machine all the time. And I do enjoy a part of it. And that is, I love learning new things. I love reading, even my magazines that I read, like I read The Economist. I mean, that Amy calls it my downtime, but it's still kind of work related.
Right.
I get ideas from it. I enjoy that, but it's I don't know. It just I've got to I've got to I know I've got to do the what you said a little bit earlier. I've got to take some time off where I can take half a day or a full day and just veg and do nothing else. I mean,
Right.
that's why I love going to the movie theater, because my phone is off for those 2.5 hours or 2 hours, because you got the previews. I can sit there, and the only thing I'm worried about is whether that popcorn kernel gets into my mouth. That's pretty
Right.
much it. And so,
Right.
but that's one of my favorite activities to do, where I honestly feel as though I'm fully disconnected. But yeah, I personally struggle with it, and it's, I don't know. I'm old enough to realize, I realize it, and old enough to be smart enough to say, okay, what do I need to do to disconnect a little bit more from it? And I don't know if it's necessarily, if it's messed up my mental health, because I mean, I'm a happy person already as it is, but I know that I've got to kind of put it away sometimes, and I don't. So
And if I'm being honest, I think it has had an impact on myself and the way I look at things, for right or wrong. And it's something that I need to work on, even as a guy who's entering, senior years, where I have less years behind than in front of me. My wife and I will be watching TV, and there's just two of us in a room, and the TV's on, and I'll take a minute and look, and we're both looking at the phone and watching a TV show at the same time. It's kind of funny and kind of sad at the same time. You know, um, we're more than multitasking nowadays. We're doing 4, 5, 6 things at the same time. There are good reasons for a lot of it and pluses for a lot of it, but it does take its toll at some time. Um, and I'm willing to admit it, and it's something that I need to work on.
yeah, well, Larry, I'll let you maybe this week I'll try to, as we get into Labor Day weekend, I'll try to take some time off and from the phone. I'll let you know how it goes though. But it's tough, but nonetheless. But we'll do that.
Yep. I like sometimes when we just go have lunch instead of having Zoom meetings. It makes it more interpersonal. But the truth is, Zoom meetings and Zoom calls are more efficient and effective, and you can do more things at one time. But that's where we're at in today's society.
Yeah. Well, Larry, let's leave it at that, because we kind of depressed each other right now. So we'll leave it. So what the hell's your shirt? What does your shirt say right there? Straight out of
I got a hip replacement a couple years ago, and so my wife got me a shirt that says "straight out of hip surgery." So she had it for me when I came out of surgery, so I put it on right away, and it gave the nurses a good laugh. So
that's hilarious. So let's do this. Take a picture of that. We'll try to make that the little meme that we have for this episode. I'll have Andreas put it up there. So
I will do that.
All right. Well, take care. Great talking to you, and until next time.
All right, Hector. See ya.